Good morning, everybody. Welcome out to the Game Time Grind here with the Gametime Guru. We're going to get started this Sunday morning, so I hope you guys truly enjoy the show. What's up? I really do appreciate anybody who tunes in. I know some of y'all might not tune in live, but if you do tune in live, make sure to give us a like and a follow on YouTube. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and following the platform, as we'll be posting new interviews every single Friday morning for the podcast. Been doing it for 9 years. My name is Shane Larson, host of the Gametime Guru. Today, we're going to be going over a couple of things. I want to do a quick UFC 324 recap, as well as talk about the Broncos and Jarrett Stidham, and go over what's new on the podcast. So on the Gametime Grind, this is episode 1 that we're going to kind of revamp here. Hopefully weekly, we will be doing these quick recaps here on live platforms. And so first and foremost, let's get into the UFC 324. First fight card of the year for the UFC, now on Paramount Plus. Everyone was kind of waiting to see what it was going to be like from a production standpoint. I thought it actually went pretty well. I'd be curious what you guys thought about Paramount Plus. The only downside to having it on Paramount Plus was, I guess if you could call it a downside, is that there were tons and tons of ads. But Dana White answered this question when they asked him last night in the press conference about that. And he's like, hey, listen, like they've got to make their money somehow. So that's how Paramount Plus is going to do it. But did it really impact the actual watching experience? No, because we didn't miss any of the fighting itself. A little bit of it's like you don't get to hear as much in the corners as you would with the pay-per-view model type of thing. But I thought it was actually pretty good. You can just mute the commercials if you have to. So it didn't really impact the viewer experience for me, especially because I was watching with some friends. I would be curious to know what other people thought, though, of that with the ads coming through on the Paramount Plus platform. Other than that, though, I thought the production was pretty solid. No different with the production side of things. But let's get started with the suspicious betting that went down last night with Alex Hernandez and Michael Johnson. So Alexander Hernandez, Michael Johnson, it was actually going to be a pretty solid fight. Those two were getting kind of back into the swing of things. They've kind of hit another rise of wins, and they've gotten their swagger back. But it was reported that shortly before the fight, there was some suspicious betting activity that was happening. And as I was reading up on it, it was interesting. As you look here, it said, due to some irregular betting patterns, we will be keeping the limits lower than usual. Additionally, there will not be props on this fight. So that was Bet Online's statement, I believe. And they said, this is a standard measure to protect both the bettors and the house. We will err on the side of caution. So they just noticed some irregular betting activities. Now, the reason that's a big deal, at least in my opinion, is that we have seen a lot of betting issues in sports right now, especially at the professional level. And so the fact they had to cancel that fight, Dana White was like, hey, we're not even going to take a chance on this. We don't want anything to ruin the integrity of the sport. Good call on him. Sucks for the fighters. Definitely sucks for the fighters. I don't know how they're taking care of them from a compensation standpoint, but it was definitely an unfortunate situation because Johnson and Hernandez was going to be one of the bangers that was on that fight card. But that was the first thing. Kind of interesting that got canceled. There was no health issues or anything of that nature. It was more so just because of that. So I'd be curious to know your guys' thoughts on the betting side of things and how that's impacting sports as a whole. Right now, the FBI is looking deep into this. If you've listened to my podcast, I've had a couple of guys on the show. Art Manteris was one of them, who claims that the sports world is like the integrity of the game is actually protected more now than it was before because of all this. But he was huge into the sports betting scene. I also had Matt Boyer on the show, who was the bookie that was part of the Otani scandal. So interesting to hear and see some of this stuff impacting the sports world. But props to Dana White for canceling that fight and not even taking a chance with it. Kind of sucks for the fighters, though. Now let's take a look at Jean Silva versus Allen. That fight was also very, very good. Very high level striking. I love Silva's attitude. I just love that he's a dog. He comes out there and he fights hard. And Allen is a technical striker, man. He was very, very efficient, but it just seemed that every piece of damage, like every time a punch hit Allen, it just caused more damage to his face. But I will say I was pretty impressed with both of these fighters. It was cool to see them fighting on this card and making some action happen. At least it went to a decision, but it was at least an interesting fight, in my opinion. I want to talk about this. Rose Namajunas was in another snooze fest. I don't understand. It's so interesting to me with her. I love her as a fighter, one of my favorite female fighters that's out there. But man, she's had some really, really good bouts, some really good battles. And there's been some really, really questionable fights that she's gone through, like some terrible fights. Truthfully, just awful. And I just felt like that was such a boring fight to watch. Like, it's almost like I was talking to my friend last night about it. It's like when you're playing a video game, you're playing the UFC video game and you're clicking the buttons and they're just punching the air and there's really no like action happening. You're just kind of like pushing the buttons for no reason. And that's what it seemed like to me. I'm not sure if like it feels like ever since her championship level fighting, her passion and her drive has almost shifted completely. I don't know if she feels like she can still be at the top, but last night, man, it just seemed like that was another snooze fest for us. I don't know. I would be curious to hear what you guys have to say. Obviously, from the fans' perspective, it's easier said than done. We're not in the octagon fighting in front of millions and millions of people, so we don't feel the pressures of that. It's not our livelihood. So yeah, obviously we can say what we want. I would be curious to know what your guys' thoughts are, though, as the general public. The one that I was really disappointed in was Derek Lewis. Like, this is kind of how Lewis is. You know, he has a little bit of energy in him. He's sneaky athletic. He can throw some kicks, and obviously he's got the one punch power. But Acosta was out there just piecing him up. But the way that it ended was just so interesting to me because he got clipped going in, and then he slipped. It almost felt like, you know, and then he lays on his back. Now he did that earlier in the fight too, if you remember. He did lay on his back, and I was like, man, is he just exhausted, or is it just like it almost feels like Lewis? I love, as much as I love him and he's such a dog with his right hand, he's so entertaining. There have been multiple times that I've seen him, like once things don't go his way, it's almost like he just shuts down mentally, and you can see it physically. He like gives up and gets hit a lot and just like takes the shots. I've seen it in multiple fights. And that's the one thing that's a bummer, because you would hope that somebody like him who can dish it would be willing to sit there and just swing and bang, you know, like he said against Tuivasa, like let's swing and bang. And I would love to see him just like plant his foot and like go after it. But there's been some times where it's like it almost seems like he gives up. Again, as a fan, easy for me to say. I'm not in the octagon fighting, but I'd be curious to know what you guys thought. Like, it just seemed a little weird how that fight ended. Kind of disappointing, but hats off to Costa. Now, Sugar Sean O'Malley comes back out there, and I was interested in this fight. It was interesting to see that the judges all gave him round one. I thought that was an interesting scorecard there. It could have gone either way on that front. But seeing O'Malley in the third round get his swagger back a little bit, it was kind of nice to see. You could tell he was taking some shots, though, and he was limping after the fight. I mean, he took a lot of leg shots. Legs were hurting him, you could tell. But you can just see that he, like, when he's in his flow state, Sean O'Malley's fun to watch. But in order for him to compete at a championship level, he is going to have to learn how to grapple, and that's just the reality. It's just going to have to be what it is, especially at that high level. That's how Piotr Jan was able to defeat Merab, is he could defend the takedowns, and he did that for the whole fight and just kept dishing out punishment. And so he had to figure that out, and I think O'Malley's going to have to dig deep if he wants to get back to that championship level and dig deep and get that. I would love to see a Piotr Jan and Sean O'Malley rematch. Obviously, I think Merab's going to get that rematch against Jan first. But if Jan gets through that, I would love to see O'Malley and Jan. And even if he doesn't, I want to see O'Malley and Jan get that rematch back and see both of them as they've kind of had this resurgence in their career at this point, how that would go. So I would love to see that. Now, this one right here, Gaethje and Pimblett, was an absolute war. Absolute war. And I was so impressed with both of them. Gaethje is just so, I think my friend Garrett said it perfectly. He reminds me of Dan Henderson. He just kind of stiff, just kind of walks in there, doesn't have a ton of like technique. Hands are straight up. There's no like natural flow to him and a bounce, but man, he can brawl. And when he catches you, it hurts you. And Pimblett, man, he's huge for the weight class. And he's a very underrated striker because he was catching Gaethje with some good shots, man. And so this is where I was like, man, I just didn't expect Gaethje to do that. He kept leaning to the right, and I was like waiting for another kick or an uppercut or a knee to just catch Gaethje and just like put him down or something. And I think Pimblett caught him with a couple good things on the entry, but dude, just like watching, I gained so much respect for both of them. Like you can never count out Justin Gaethje. He just loves it. He just enjoys being in there and fighting. That's what he wants to do. I love that he came out there to Garth Brooks and was doing his thing. Just a kind of a cool entry there. But dude, Paddy Pimblett, he brings so much entertainment and eyeballs to the sport. And the way that he finished that fight with getting beat up, I mean, he got a couple eye pokes, I mean, that were pretty bad, and then a shot to the nuts wasn't ideal. But he kept fighting, man. And that's one thing I really appreciate about fighters like that. Like you could tell his face was beat up and he wasn't feeling good, but he kept putting his feet down, like planting his feet and throwing in the pocket. And he was catching Gaethje. There was a couple times in the last round he caught Gaethje a couple times, and I was like, oh boy, if he times this right, and he was hitting pretty hard. It's just a little too late, you know, on that front. But I gained a ton of respect for Pimblett. I don't understand why people and other fighters are hating on him. I understand, like, oh, they thought he got bumped up in the rankings too quickly, artificial rankings, whatever. I'll tell you right now, he's earned his stripes, in my opinion. Yeah, you can only beat who's given to you on the thing, and then he fights Gaethje and goes to an absolute war with Gaethje, who's a legend in the sport. So you can't knock on Pimblett. You're not going to win every single fight. You're not Khabib, but some people could say the same about Khabib for a lot of his career, right? Like, let's just be honest and call a spade a spade. Like, up until the points where he won the championships, you know, he defeated like McGregor, he defeated Gaethje and Poirier. That's fine and that's awesome. He's one of the best to do it, but like leading up to that, like Khabib had a pretty soft resume going into the UFC. You know, he didn't have a ton of big time fights going in when he made it into the UFC, and so there's some things to be said about that too. Everybody just has to fight who's in front of them. It doesn't mean you're a bad fighter. Some people might say he's overrated, but I'll say he earned his stripes to me last night. Pimblett, man, Patty the Batty, dude. That dude will come back better. That war he went through right there, once he heals up, he's going to be much, much better. I was thoroughly impressed with that. I'm glad that fight is what ended the card, because there were some subpar fights on there from an entertainment perspective, and Pimblett and Gaethje finished that off the right way. Good for them. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about today as we get into the football playoffs, can Stidham deliver, right? We were talking about this, a friend of mine, about Jarrett Stidham and whether or not he's like ready for the moment. Everyone just counted it out. As soon as the news on Bo Nix came out last week, breaks his ankle near the very end of the game, and they're like, oh no, it's all over. Well, the more I got to thinking about it, I'm like, not really, right? Stidham is an absolute dog. Like, and I think people forget about this. The dude, first off, let's just his body type. He's 6'2", 220-ish, right? So he's built like a good quarterback, solid frame. And people forget that when he was in college, this dude could sling it. You know what I mean? He played for Baylor for a short period, but then he went to Auburn. And for those who don't remember, at Auburn, he started when Bo Nix was like coming, like he was like, Jarrett Stidham was there when Nix got there, right, initially. And so they crossed paths a little bit. And there's pictures of the two of them, right? Let me make sure. I want to see if I can pull this picture up. Let me see here. Auburn. Yeah, let's pull this picture up. See if I can. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. They didn't, my apologies. I think I misquoted on that. They didn't cross paths, like as far as start, because Bo Nix started as a freshman. But that was when he was a high school recruit. Stidham was there. And the picture of them while Stidham was at Auburn in 2018, starting quarterback. Yeah, and then Nix was the high school recruit. Can I post this up here? Let's see if I can share it real fast. Don't know if I can get it up there. But it's just interesting. They had that. They didn't cross paths from a playing perspective, but they have that connection together, right? Like Stidham left, Bo Nix comes in as a freshman, plays over there. But the fact of the matter is, Stidham's stats in college, like he was awesome. So so records by Jarrett Stidham. Auburn record of 162 pass attempts without an interception in 2018. He had a 72.2% completion percentage versus Washington in 2018. And then he had 18 consecutive completions in a 2017 game against Mercer. Okay, the opponent's not ideal. But take a look at this. So here's the awards that Jarrett Stidham had in college. Music City Bowl MVP in 2018, the Manning Award finalist 2017, Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award finalist 2017, the SEC Newcomer of the Year 2017, and then he was second team All SEC in 2017. So this dude can actually sling the ball. People forget about it because it's been a while, right? And they all hear about Bo Nix and Denver, and they're hearing about all these things. Jarrett Stidham can sling the ball. Like, he knows how to play the game, and he's been waiting for his opportunity. I don't know if this is necessarily the opportunity he wanted, which was to start in a playoff game, the AFC Championship. Maybe he wanted it. I don't know if the fans necessarily want it that way, but I'll tell you right now, Stidham can play the game. He's more than capable of winning it. And the Broncos actually, you know what? Like, yeah, they're going to have to switch up their game plan a little bit. To that point, when you bring in a new quarterback, there's not a ton of film on this quarterback. So the defense is almost at a disadvantage, at least for that one game. You always see this. Like, sometimes you see these like beautiful stories of like the backup quarterback comes in. When there's not a ton of film on somebody, it's hard to make a game plan for real. Like, you can say like, oh, we're going to put pressure on him because he's going to make mistakes. If you have a good offensive game plan that's a little bit adjusted and the other team doesn't have, they're going to have to make in-game adjustments throughout the whole entire thing. And so sometimes it can put that defense in a disadvantage because of the fact there's no film. That's why like those rookie quarterbacks that have a really good season tend to have like a really good year. And then sometimes that sophomore year, they say the second year is when that's when the true stuff comes out, because now they got film on the guy. Now they got film and they can game plan against this dude's tendencies, you know? And so same concept here. Maybe they don't have, this might work to their benefit. We'll see. We'll see how well this ages after the game today. But I'm just curious to see how it goes. To finish up today, guys, new on the podcast, just want to share with you guys a couple of interviews. So if you're not aware, the Gametime Guru podcast, every Friday morning, new episodes, new interviews are released on the platform. Right now, we've got David Hitz, who is the founder of NeuroPro, and he talks about neuroscience and mental performance for athletes. We just talked about it on the latest episode of the podcast. Go check it out. It's a really good, insightful interview about how to improve your mental performance and the things that you can do throughout each day. We talk about breath work. We talk about tapping. We talk about cold therapy and all the things that you can do to try to help from a psychological standpoint, the mental performance when you're an athlete. Super, super cool. Coming up on the show, I have Willie Wright, who is an awesome guy helping with student athlete development at Boise State University, but he played in the NFL. He played for Tulsa as an offensive lineman. And they're talking about the name, image, and likeness factor and how to like be successful off the field once the ball goes flat. So that one will be next week. Super cool interview there. So if you guys want to listen to the podcast, go to YouTube. Obviously, you can follow us here. We'll make sure that you can listen to all the interviews, watch all of the interviews on Friday mornings. And then if you go to Apple Podcast, Spotify, and any other platform that you listen to podcasts on, the show has been downloaded in 183 countries, all 50 states over the last 9 years. Super, super cool. It's grown and grown and grown and grown. And so the audio listener base is scattered all across the world because people want to hear stories. They want to hear these stories. So I would encourage you guys to check it out. So with that being said, really grateful for you guys. Thanks for tuning in this morning. And if you guys happen to catch this when it's not live, awesome. But we'll be doing this more frequently, going live to chat with all of you guys. Have a good one.